What's up everyone, back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing yet another beer from the Deschutes Brewery, and they are out of Bend, Oregon, and this is their Fresh Squeezed IPA. So this is an IPA that comes in at 6.4% alcohol by volume, 60 IBUs at the time of review. And this can is just under 6 weeks old. So it's been a long time coming, but Deschutes has finally made it to New York State. Last month, we started getting distribution of their beers, and for many years, they have gotten distribution into Ohio, and I'm pretty sure Pennsylvania. And every time I'd go to Ohio, I'd pick up some of their beer, and I always thought it was just, they were just going to show up at some point. It just felt natural, like, you know, you hit Ohio, PA, New York should be next, and it never happened until now, so I'm super stoked about this one. 4 different beers from them showed up. This and their Black Butte Porter, which I've reviewed on the channel before, and the non-alcoholic versions of both beers. So I picked up the non-alcoholic version of this beer, and I'm going to review it right after this one. You're going to see it in a separate video about, I'd say about 1 to 2 weeks after this one. The reason for that is because I forgot to buy a second can of this, and I want to review that one while this one is fresh on the mind and I can actually compare it on camera. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one. Now, full disclosure, I've had this before numerous times. First time I had it, I think, was like mid to late 2014, and I wasn't wowed by it. I thought it was really good, but it didn't blow me away. And every single time I had it after that, same thing. I thought it was a very good, like juicy-esque IPA, but nothing amazing. But you know, a lot of things change over the years, and I think the last time I had this one was maybe like 7-8 years ago. So yeah, we're gonna see what this one's all about. They use Citra and Mosaic hops, and yeah, let's crack this one open, get into the glass, and see what we got going on with this one. So this is more in your old school, like, you know, American IPAs that started becoming a little bit more juicy with Citra and Mosaic hops. Like it was the natural progression, I feel. And yeah. Oh, now the nose on this. Now again, this is just under 6 weeks old, so not super fresh, but fresh enough. The nose on this one, I could smell as I was pouring it. Big, like citrus and stone fruit vibes. So in the glass, yeah, that has like a, I don't use this term often, I should probably start using this word, but like has this like honey, like amber color. You know, Jurassic Park with the mosquito in the amber, kind of has that, maybe a little bit duller in person. On camera, it's probably gonna look a bit darker, but yeah, it has a good, pretty solid clarity to it outside of some chill haze. You can see the shadow, might be able to make out my hand a little bit, but mostly just the shadow. Good carbonation, has about a 1.5 fingers to 2 fingers of the soap sudsy, but yet somewhat creamy looking head that's off, I'd say off-white until like eggshell white, but if we're talking about an older school American IPA or like a West Coast-esque IPA, I think that looks pretty fucking good, if I'm being honest with you. So let's get a nose. Yeah, I mean, this just smells like so many of the beers from, you know, the early to mid to even late 2010s that aren't hazies. It just has like a lot of like white grapefruit, juicy orange, tangerine, big citrus notes. But I am actually from the Mosaic getting a little bit of the old school like berry, like more of a blueberry. Touch of like a peach and a mango. Almost passion fruit guava-esque as well. There's this underlying bready, slight caramel kind of malt character. Now, you're going to see this one a bit after I reviewed High Life, but this kind of gives me High Life vibes. I think this is a little bit more juicy and bright with the citrus notes, but it has that same kind of like malty base to it that's more old school bready caramel. And then it has this nice floral kind of aroma too, maybe a touch of like a resinous pine. Yeah, it just smells really good. Let's get into it. Cheers, everyone. Again, this brings me back to drinking beer 10 to 12 years ago, where if I got an IPA, this is what I would typically kind of gravitate towards, because while it still has a nice bitterness, has a lot of like older school IPA vibes, it has a nice juicy kind of fruity quality that's more, even though it's very citrus heavy, there's more of that like stone fruit and tropical fruit character. Body straight up medium, 6.4%. It's nice. The mouthfeel, it has a smoothness on the palate, almost slightly creamy, but very crisp, moderate carbonation, spritzy on the tongue. The taste right at the forefront, bready caramel malt, dives underneath the palate with you the entire way, but kind of, you know, pops up all those hop characters. And then right after that, tons of orange, tangerine, grapefruit. It's a mixture of juicy and pithy and somewhat bittering citrus qualities, but it definitely has a juiciness to it. Midway through the palate, I get smacked with a nice dose of like a mango. And a little bit of that sweeter blueberry that I was talking about in the nose. That passion fruit and guava, maybe a touch on the back of the palate, not really that prominent, although in the nose it wasn't that prominent either. It was like the last thing I mentioned. On the finish though, this finishes with a floral, almost herbaceous kind of tone, a little bit of resinous pine. This is like moderately to touch over moderately bitter. It's also full on dry. So while this is juicy and sweet and whatnot at the front of the palate, on the back of the palate, it really turns into what you would think of an old school American IPA. Pour the rest into the glass here because I can, and then it goes everywhere on my table. Yeah, this is exactly what I remember it being. It's a mixture of like the old school IPAs, and then just, again, once you started getting in the mid 2010s, you had a lot of like hazies and juicy IPAs and stuff. It's kind of like a hybrid between like a juicy IPA and an old school American IPA. It has enough bitterness, enough of that like floral, herbaceous, kind of resinous pine quality on the back of the palate to say, hey, that's old school, but then enough of that fruity, kind of juicy character at the front of the palate and midway through the palate to say, yeah, this is a juicy IPA. 6.4%, there's no astringency on the palate, no warming in the chest, although I would guess this is probably at least 6 to 6.5% based on what I'm tasting. It's nice, it's well done. This is very reminiscent of High Life from Cigar City, not specifically in taste, because I think they're a bit different. I feel like that highlight had a little bit more like a caramel kind of malt quality to it. It wasn't as vibrant with other characteristics outside of that, like citrus, and more specifically like an orange and tangerine. That one was a little bit like orange marmalade on white bread, where this is just, yeah, there's a lot of juicy, fruity characteristics. And this is also more bitter than that beer. And the reason why I'm comparing off the top of my head is like both of those beers, first time I had in 2014, and they kind of are similar in some respects despite being, you know, across the country in the US. That said, I do dig this one slightly more than the High Life. Again, it's a slightly different beer, so it makes sense. But Fresh Squeezed IPA from Deschutes, I'm going to give this a high 4 out of 5. I'm a 4.1. Typically, I give this around a 4 out of 5, so I may a little bit higher than I typically give it. But yeah, I think this is really well made. I understand why so many people have enjoyed this one over the past, 10 to 12 years. It's just a really well made, good, enjoyable, a juicy IPA. It's not like straight out an old school American IPA. I wouldn't even necessarily classify this as a West Coast IPA, though maybe somewhat in that realm, but pretty good. Now on the label here too, they also say a perfectly crushable and balanced IPA with bright citrus and tropical fruit notes. Sure, balanced, yeah, I mean it is, but I think it still leans a little bit more dry and bitter than a lot, especially for something that, you would refer to as a juicy IPA or because do they say it on here? I mean, the name of it's Fresh Squeeze, so yeah, loaded with juicy hops, for whatever that means. Then they have tasting notes. They have 5 blocks. They give 2 out of 5 for tropical, 4 out of 5 for citrus, and 4 out of 5 for crisp. It also says freshest within 4 months. Again, this is just under 6 weeks old, so we're doing good. Anyway, price point availability. Now, I went to their website so I could do a little bit better job of telling you what the price point and availability is. On the website, I think it was like, and here I am forgetting, I think it was like 11 something for a 6-pack if you were to get it like delivered. They ship to like 3 states, but if you were to get it on the website, it was like 11 something. Here in the Western New York area, I've seen it for $12 and $13 6-pack. So, not too bad. A little bit higher than a lot of these older school, like the High Life was, you can get it around here for like $10 to $11. This is a $1 or $2 more per 6-pack. Is it worth it? That's in the eye of the beholder. And availability, they have a beer finder on the website, so you can check that out. Just put in your zip code. It'll tell you if it's available nearby. And they also, again, ship to, I think, 3 different states, and you can buy them right on the website. So, yeah, I'm sure if you have had Deschutes stuff before, you know about this beer. You probably had this beer, and you might even be able to get this beer wherever you are. But I'm just happy they're in New York State. I bought a couple cans of Black Butte Porter just to enjoy, off camera because I've already reviewed that one. However, I did pick up their non-alcoholic Black Butte Porter. I'm going to do a comparison in a review at some point in the next couple of weeks. So again, be on the lookout for the non-alcoholic review of this one in a week or 2. I'm going to do it right after this one. So I'm going to stop yapping. If you've had this one before, please post in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this one. Again, another older school IPA that I still think holds up extremely well. And I might buy this from time to time, just like High Life going forward if I'm in the mood for something that's not going to break the bank, but also has some really nice flavors and is a nice marriage of like an old school IPA with a little bit of new school influence. So appreciate it. To the next one. Cheers.